Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in celebrating the 40th anniversary of Airplane. Zaz, David Zucker, Jim Abrams, and Jerry Zucker. Gentlemen, I always feel like the first question I have to ask about this film is how did this get made? But I think we'll start with this was won the WGA for Best Adapted Screenplay, right? Can we talk about how it became how it's an adapted screenplay?
We did a theater called Kentucky Fried Theater, and so thank you, and so we do spoofs of commercials, and so we'd record the night's old movies on TV, and then see what we'd pick up. And this we weren't interested in the commercials, but we started getting fixated on this movie called 0 Hour, which was in black and white. It was so serious, and we had done redubbings of these kind of movies, you know, where a character would be very serious and would be saying, one character would say to the other, what time does the plane leave? It's exactly 0800 hours. And we dub in, where is your hand? It's right here at the end of my wrist. And so, and we would, but here was a movie where it was like all there, and I think at some point we had the idea, why don't we just remake the movie and recast it with these kind of actors.
There was actually a line from 0 Hour that we saw tonight that says, we need to find somebody who not only can fly this plane, but who didn't have fish for dinner. And we took that right from Arthur Haley's screenplay. And actually, can I tell you another quick? So we did win an award for adapted screenplay that year in 1980 from the Writers Guild. And we kind of got wind of it ahead of time. So we dressed up like everybody does when they go to those awards, but underneath we had shirts where one guy said, "What a surprise." And so when we went up to accept the award, we took off our regular clothes and our shirt, and there were our undershirts saying, "What a surprise."
So the writing begins with basically the structure 0 Hour. Then how did the writing work?
We didn't know how to write a movie, so this was great. I'll let you answer this, Jerry.
Thank you, David. I'll try to make my remarks briefer than yours. We had no clue about structure, movie structure, just jokes, and we really didn't even learn it after Airplane, as you can see in Top Secret, has no plot or structure really. But in retrospect, realized what a gift this movie was. And also, there just can be no better setting for a comedy than an airplane in danger for our kind of comedy, because you can always come back to that real heavy drama.
How did you work as writers for this, though? Did you just get together, or people write?
Yeah, we did get together.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely got together. We found that helpful.
But was it riffing on each other, or were you writing away from each other?
We would actually, I think, write everything together in the same room. I mean, one of us would come in with a joke that we had thought up, but we didn't go and write separately.
We would watch on the video a scene from 0 Hour, and then we would add in the jokes.
We watch all kinds of film. I mean, not just 0 Hour, but every flying movie and other dramas. It was like stop the tape. What if this?
Because the Airport would just come out, so that was another major influence, correct?
Yeah, there had been a whole decade of kind of mediocre disaster movies, and they all were the same kind of tone. And so we were very lucky to be right in the right place at the right time with the right kind of point of view.
Writing, 3 people get together, but directing, how does 3 people direct a single film?
Oh, well, really, it's not too bad when you think about it, because there are a lot of things that can be done if you really work hard. It'll happen eventually.
Right.
And that's pretty much how it works.
So was there much pushback from the studio, some of these jokes that you were writing?
Every studio turned it down before we got to Paramount, and they were really great. Do you guys remember them objecting to any specific lines in the script?
No, I think the Polish Anti-Defamation League objected to one of the jokes that we
Which
had.
we took out.
Yeah, we took out. So
I would have loved.
No, it was Air Poland, and the pilot was Jose Feliciano, and
Stevie Wonder
Stevie Wonder. Yeah.
and Ray Charles. Yeah, that was it. So
I would have loved to seen Peter Graves reading this script for the first time. He is so good because he's so not the person you would expect doing a comedy. Can you talk about Peter Graves and getting him in the film?
Well, what we heard was that he read the script and he threw it in the trash, saying, "This is the worst piece of garbage I've ever read." And I guess, thinking back on it, actors, when they read a script, they just read their own lines, and it appeared that he was a pedophile. So, but fortunately, our executive...
In those days, that wasn't that objectionable, but still.
Right. So,
People are so fussy now about every little thing.
You can't do anything now. Yeah. But our executive producer, Howard Koch, called Peter and said, "Peter, before you make your final decision, just come in to the studio and meet the boys," as we were called. And I think also his wife liked the script, and his daughter encouraged him to do it.
The funniest person ever. I mean, he's funny listening. He's the only person I've ever just laughed watching listening is, of course, the great Leslie Nielsen. Can we talk about your years of working with him and what he was like?
Leslie was great. For our kind of humor, I think in this movie, it's the best example of how our humor should be done. Leslie, when he got the script, he just loved it. And he relished the idea of playing it straight and saying these goofy things. And Leslie was kind of an anarchist in a way. I mean, that, his personality, he famously carried this fart machine with him all the time, and he'd love to walk on elevators in a suit and just press this thing and just sort of see how people would react.
Later on the press tour, we would be in a crowded elevator, and he would do it there, and see people kind of trying to push themselves against the side of the elevator, trying to get out.
As he would do the fart machine, he would kind of squirm uncomfortably, too. So there was that.
Leslie, what he could do is he could play it so perfectly straight, but his comic timing is perfect. I mean, when he says, "Well, can't you take a guess?" Peter Graves says, "Not for another 2 hours." And then there's just this perfectly timed pause that I don't think we told him.
I told him to do that.
Oh, right. That we didn't use that take. And then he says, "You can't take a guess for now." I mean, he's just everything. I think he's just on both sides. The being able to play it straight and also be really funny. Lloyd, who I think is great, adds a wonderful texture to the film, but you can kind of see he didn't trust the jokes that much, and I don't blame him because he had never seen it before. We were doing a very different thing, but he's just pushing it a little bit.
No, but I was going to say by Hot Shots, I think he really knew
even
it.
then, I mean, Lloyd was more from the school, "Oh, I'm an actor, so I must have a character." Well, we weren't interested in that. Or character arc, or, how does he feel about things? We weren't interested in that. We just read the lines and say the joke.
The Marx Brothers would take a film on tour before they filmed it and could find the pauses when the audience was going to laugh. The pauses are there. So how did you guys find those moments where the laughter doesn't trample all the jokes?
We had years of experience in Kentucky Fried Theater, so we were very close to that audience experience.
But we previewed the film a lot.
Yeah.
We must have had 8 previews or something, and we kept cutting it and refining it to the laughs.
Right. When Kareem is done berating the little boy, and he kind of pushes away, and we just hold on that little boy forever. And that was based on the audience reaction. The audience just loved that moment, so we just kept that shot.
Was there a scene that was harder to shoot or more difficult than any other, or maybe the dance scene, or?
There's just one actor we had a problem with, Al White. No, he's here, I know.
Al here? Al, where are you?
Somebody told me Al.
Al!
There he is, yeah.
So, Alan White and Norm Gibbs, the two jive guys, came in to read, and they happened to audition together. In the script, it was really just, Moshe Shima. I mean, we didn't know. We just wrote some gobbledygook, and we apologized that was the best that three white Jewish guys from Milwaukee could do. And Al and Norm just said, okay, can we make stuff up? Can we write stuff? We said, great. And everything in the film, all of their dialogue was written by the two of them.
One of the great things that helps the tone, keeps the tension going, is the great score in this film. Can you talk about Elmer Bernstein, how that came about?
Yeah, he had done so many serious scores, and we had to ask him to do a B movie score. And so he wasn't insulted. And he saw the movie, and he laughed all the way through it, even with our temp score.
He got it. He totally got it. Yeah.
I'm going to open it up to the audience for some questions. I know there are a bunch. Right over there.
What was your favorite part of shooting with Hayes and Haggerty? I love their chemistry.
He's asking about Hayes and Haggerty and their chemistry. What was it like?
This kind of humor is very specific. And so if an actress tries to make it funny or it isn't quite on it, it's dead. And we're thinking, we're not that funny, really. We're kind of like, oh, God. And then Julie came in, and she just nailed it and was like, we're geniuses. This is great. And she really was just, and you can see in the film, she doesn't let on that she knows she's in a comedy.
She is that character. I mean, she's very sweet, and she didn't have to actuate to it like some of the other.
Well, she played it real. She acted, but she really believed that she was in a plane that was in trouble. She was thinking that, and not, oh, this is a comedy, I have funny lines to deliver here.
That reminded me, the test screening, was there a certain screening where you saw it click and you're like, oh my God, they get it, this is gonna be great?
Well, there was. I mean, the first screenings of most of the movies that we've ever done have been disasters, and it was no different for Airplane. And it's because you don't know what's gonna work. And there's probably 20 minutes in there that isn't funny. So once you cut that out, it plays a lot better because these things absolutely depend on pace. And so the first screening, I think, was on the Paramount lot. And the second screening, after we cut the picture and made a lot of trims, was at University of California, Davis. And it was at that was at a college audience, and it just played great. And then that's the moment we knew, oh, we had it. This
until Michael Eisner wanted to do the premiere at Paramount. So we did a big fancy premiere at Paramount, and the projectionist put the reels up out of order. So when 1, 2, 3, 5, and it's revealing about who the three of us are, how we reacted. I had gone out before the screening with some friends because I was kind of nervous and had a couple cocktails. So when all of a sudden the fifth reel came up instead of the fourth, my reaction was, wow, this is great. We thought we had a pacing problem, but this really moves along great. David's reaction?
Well, all these Hollywood premieres are very low reaction. It's not an enthusiastic audience, but only because they're all rooting for you to fail. And so what happened was this gave me, I thought, oh, good, we have an excuse as to why the movie played so badly.
And I just ran up to the projection booth, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Hardcore, where George C. Scott sees his daughter in a porn movie and says, "Take it off! Take it off!" And the guy says, "What?" I said, "The reels are out of order." He said, "No, it's right, whatever." And I just screamed, and so finally he stopped it and put the right reel on. So. but the thing, the wrong reel starts with the shit hitting the fan, and that's real. So then he took that one a little bit, and he took it off, and then put on the right reel. But then, of course, 10 minutes later, the shit hit the fan again. And people afterwards were saying, "I don't think you need to do that joke twice."
Right there.
I wanted to hear a little bit about Ethel Merman. What was it like getting Ethel Merman?
I was asking about Ethel Merman. What was it like getting her, and how did she react?
Everybody wants to be in a movie, so it was no problem getting her. And but in her contract was that she had to bring her own hairdresser. So that's how she wanted to look. So
it was an absolute treat. She
was very nice.
She was wonderful, and just to be able to see her sing that little bit live was really a treat.
Howard Jarvis.
Not as much of a treat.
He was happy having anybody do his hair. Yeah, so that wasn't an issue.
What about Kareem, who's amazing in this film? What was that experience like?
He's great. He's really, he has a shyness but he's really actually a very smart, articulate guy.
Very smart. Right there.
I apologize because I have to leave to get my husband from the airport. But
we can take you.
Barbara Billingsley. How did she adapt from being Bieber's mom to talking jive with Al and those guys? Was it difficult for her to pick that up?
Her question's about Barbara Billingsley. How did she adapt going from Beaver's mom to the translator in this?
Actually, I think, Al, you and Norm worked with her.
Yeah, I worked with her for 2 hours on it because she was very specific about getting it right. Get it right. So I had it down, and I worked with her for 2 hours, and she got it down. The line that she had, "Cut me some slack, Jack." It was written down, "Cut me some slack, Jack." And that's how she was saying it at first. And I said, "No, you have to conjugate it, Cut me some. Cut me some. Cut me some slack, Jack. She had it perfect.
That's great.
You guys got the actual announcers, right, from the airport at LAX? Is that true?
Yeah, it turned out those were this couple was a married couple who sold the equipment to the airports. And they did the announcements. And so I think we tried out actors and actresses doing the voiceover. It didn't sound right. So we finally got them.
So they were still doing it? It was still their voice when Airplane?
Well, they're not actually there every day doing it. It's a recording. I would have thought that would have been obvious, but look.
But the lines are actually from the novel Airport, from Arthur Haley's novel. And that's where we get the abortion lines and all that stuff. It's all from this book.
We're right there in the middle.
Did you write the part of Rex Kramer, or Captain Kramer, with Robert Stack in mind?
He's asking if Kramer was written for Robert Stack in mind.
That was a good question. We absolutely did. Yeah, he was the one. We didn't have Leslie, Peter.
He was the only one.
Yeah, he was the only one. We really were set on getting Robert Stack, and he was really the hardest one to get. One of the first drafts we wrote was in 1975, and we called the agent.
Our agent wouldn't return our phone call.
Still won't. And we asked the agent, we want Robert Stack to be in our movie. It's going to be called Kentucky Fried Theater's Airplane. And the agent says, is this a go picture? And there's a pause, and we said, what's a go picture? And so he says, call back when you have the money. So we did. 4 years later, we did.
You guys were in the film, and members of your family were in the film as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Jim's mom says, I think the man next to me is a doctor when Leslie is introduced. And then our mom is the lady who tries to apply makeup and misses.
Very good. Now, have you shown Airplane to your kids or family?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're all grown now.
But I showed it to my son Charles when he was like 1.5, and so and I don't think he understood much, but his favorite part was the boobies, and so after that, you know, we started watching softcore porn together, and it's not what you think. For him it was food, so yeah.
Going back out, right up there.
Well, are you guys aware of the influencer kind of remake of Airplane with all the influencers off Instagram? They took your movie and tried to make it.
Are you aware of the influencer version of Airplane?
We're much too old to understand influencers. What, could you explain what that is?
Logan Paul and a bunch of people that became famous on Instagram and YouTube made an Airplane movie. It's pretty much a ripoff of your movie. So Logan, how do you feel about that?
I don't know how I feel about it, but my son did send me that poster. I mean, when I could get him away from the porn. But so I am aware of it, but I've never seen it, and I don't know anything about it other than that.
Right there.
I have been talking to a few strangers today, and we just got to talk about.
Good for you. That's excellent.
Next
That's just
question.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Next question.
And how did that feel? Good?
We would all recite lines to each other, and we were cracking up for like 10 minutes. And 40 years later, I just wonder what it means to you that something you had an idea of has become something that's in the DNA of so many people.
He's asking how it feels that him and strangers were laughing at something that they didn't know each other and it was 40 years ago.
It's always great, and we never really predicted it. I mean, people would ask us, did you think that Airplane would be a hit? And we said, yes, we thought it would be a hit because we had, for 5 years, we were telling people, this is going to be a hit. You know, you have to do it. You know, you have to finance it. But what we couldn't predict is that it would last so long. So that's been just a pleasure.
No, I don't think that we ever think, you know, we were like 30-year-old boys. It's not like you're trying to figure out what's going to happen 40 years from now. So to see what's evolved and what's become of it is, I mean, I was saying, Jerry and I were sitting together for a while watching the movie, and the feeling, listening to the audience respond, was like everybody was here visiting an old friend. Yeah.
And it's not, nothing's dated. It's all still very relatable. I mean, the coffee commercial spoof, but if they don't know what that coffee commercial now, it's still funny because it's weird.
Because it wasn't it wasn't based on pop culture of the time. It was a parody of a style of acting, really, and a certain kind of movie that everyone is familiar with and still holds up today. But we really, I think we're quite wise. I don't think we didn't do it for this reason, but to steer away from those. But I still cringe at some of these, you know, Anita Bryant Festival or whatever. It's like, oh God.
Or the Ronald Reagan. It's just the topical references aren't great.
And there were times, I think, and I get where we got lucky too. I remember specifically when we saw the Jive, the inspiration for the Jive Guys, and we had gone to see a movie called Shaft in 1975, starring Richard Roundtree, and it was a black exploitation movie. And we left the theater and we thought, you know, it was pretty good, but we didn't understand what they were saying, what the actors were saying. So we decided to write this stupid white guy interpretation and with the subtitles and everything. And then we got to make Airplane. And shortly after it opened, we went to see it with a black audience. We'd never seen it with a pretty much entirely black audience. And they laughed as hard as the white people, or the white audience did. And I remember thinking, wow, maybe there's, you know, what they were laughing at, the same thing as the white audience, is a stupid white people interpretation. and it was real, what I think, again, what we lucked into is that we kind of touched on the tone deafness of white America to the whole black experience. And that's why both white and black audiences appreciated seeing those jokes. And that because somehow the white American tone deafness is what comes through in those jokes.
Right over there in the corner.
Just wondering if each of you have a favorite moment today.
Asking if each of them have a favorite moment in the film.
I always think of when she says, I'm 26 and not married, and then the lady comes in and says, yeah, I'm scared, but at least I have a husband. So that joke, and that was also a real collaboration, because one of us came in with the joke, 26 and not married, and then the other ones contributed the rest of it. And that joke was so funny 40 years ago, and it's exactly as funny. It works exactly the same today, and that's become an example of what I think is the perfect style of humor that we want to do.
Interesting that there are 3 jokes in this movie that we loved when we wrote it, hysterical when we shot it, when we saw it in dailies, and never worked in the movie. And that's the watermelon, the spear, and when he throws the cigarette out the window and there's an explosion. And for some reason, particularly that cigarette out the window, we were just laughing hysterically. It just cracked us up. We couldn't wait to see it.
And when I see it today, I mean, it's well directed.
Never a laugh. And I think what we really learned from it is just unrelated background doesn't work. There's no frame of reference for it. It's just, we just threw something in there, and it's actually not funny. I don't know why we thought it was so funny.
My favorite is when Peter Graves and Leslie are talking. Leslie says, Captain, how soon can we land? And Over says, I can't tell. And Leslie says, you can tell me, I'm a doctor. And I think what that hit on was something that hit my family personally much later, and that's sort of the arrogance, the occasional arrogance of the medical profession.
That's an amazing moment in comedy. It's just a 2-shot of them doing nothing but talking to each other, and it's one of the funniest
We call it the mirror scene, really, yeah. And because it was done in 1 take.
Nor did we cover it. There were never singles.
There was never singles.
It was just 2-shot.
So
bang,
either
let's
it
go.
was going to work or we had nothing to cut to. Yeah.
That's amazing. Right there.
So what was your process for, like, when you're putting this together, deciding what jokes stick and what ones you're going to have to weed out?
Oh, you mean the writing?
Yeah. So how did you guys decide this is good, this isn't? How did you settle disagreements on that?
Well, one of the great things, about writing in a room with other people, and as opposed to alone, is that you get an instant reaction. So when I, thought of the joke, and don't call me Shirley, no, I'm just kidding. But when whoever thought of it came.
It was either me or Jim, I can't remember.
And so we obviously got an immediate reaction. And so if we did that, that always worked. I mean, that was our first spontaneous reaction.
We had been really working together for a long time. I mean, starting at the University of Wisconsin, and we just grew to have a tremendous trust in the wisdom of the 3 of us. And so if I came up with a joke and they didn't laugh, I would just, unless I thought they didn't understand what I meant, I just assumed it wasn't funny and we'd go on, and it just went that way all the way through. And really because we had been doing that kind of humor for a while, live on stage and Kentucky Fried Movie, even when we got to the set, we didn't have arguments. It was all problem solving. What's something isn't working. Why? Oh, maybe this, that.
And more often than not, during writing, if somebody came up with an idea and you didn't completely agree, you'd say, well, yeah, but how about this? And how about that? And it would kind of build. And that, to me, that was always the most fun of the whole movie-making process. Is just, yeah, but how about then the first time you laughed, the first time, and actually watching some of the movie tonight, I was thinking back. I remember the three of us sitting in a room together saying, "Oh yeah, how about this?" And here it is 40 years later, and we get to hear people laughing.
Since you're the directors and the writers, did you write on the set at all? Like, were you, or did you just stick to the script that you had?
We always stuck to the script.
Yeah.
There was very little improvisation. I think the slapping the woman, I think we came up with having the line of people with the various weapons. That was added.
That slap. Leslie Nielsen really slaps her, doesn't he?
She kept saying, "Yeah, slap me harder." That's what she says. Yeah.
We have time for maybe 2 more questions, right there in the middle.
Not that long ago, I showed the movie to my 13-year-old daughter for the first time, and it's the first
Our apologies.
really classic, hilarious movie that we bonded over, and we throw lines at each other. And I brought her here to see it in a big theater, and she laughed the whole thing. And I don't have a question. I get the chance to say thank you. It's very rare.
That's very sweet.
I will say it's when you talk about the two of your body, we have gotten, I don't know, recently, the last 5 years or whatever, we've gotten these letters from people who talk about a parent dying and how they always bonded. Oh, they didn't get, have that much in common, but they bonded over this particular sense of humor. And even in the last days, we're reciting airplane jokes. And it's like, talk about something you never ever dreamed would happen. I'm not hoping that you're, sorry, I didn't. But when you do, that may be something that you and your daughter have that you can share that will make the moment so meaningful.
I know. I don't think we ever thought of the ultimate poignancy of these things as we were writing "The Shit Hitting the Fan." So, yeah.
All right, we have time for 1 more. Straight in the back, under the light.
There's 2 questions about how difficult was it to shoot special effects with 70s technology and the green screen model, but also what's the meaning of airplane? What's the meaning of what?
Oh, he's asking about the model effects and what the meaning of life is.
Like in terms of the shots of the airplane flying, we love that it kind of looks like a model, or that it's not so perfect. Because that was the style. That was we were doing a B movie, so that was great. I remember the first time Steve Zucker saw the film. He saw the exterior of the airplane. He said, "It's just hanging."
Yeah, he thought that was hysterical.
Now the meaning of
the meaning of airplane?
I mean, I hate to answer this question seriously, but I think God, it just don't take stuff seriously. I mean, we were making fun of a style.
Don't look for meaning in this.
Yeah, don't look. I mean, there is no meaning. We grew up with this serious style of acting where people took themselves these actors, they had 2 speeds, on and off, and they would be it was so heavy-handed, and we just said, but that's silly. And so, in a way, if there's a message in that, I guess that's what it is.
What does that mean?
I think our last question, when I was 13, I watched another film called The Naked Gun, which I found, so it's the only time this ever happened in my life. I was laughing so hard at the Mel Allen scene, I had to get up out of my seat and put my head down because I couldn't keep watching because I knew 10 more jokes were going to kill me. I was laughing so hard. So I just wanted to say that this isn't your only masterpiece. The Naked Gun is also a wonderful masterpiece. And might we ever get anything else from you gentlemen?
Well, we are working on some projects, so yeah. So we want to,
we're still alive.
Still going 40 years later, still one of the greatest films ever made, Airplane. Zaz, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.